There we are. Good afternoon, Jan.
Good afternoon, Michael.
How you doing, sir?
Coming from behind the wall, I was like, something like that.
Yeah, just like Home Alone, the
Mm,
neighbor. Howdy, neighbor.
yeah. Whoop.
Very
No.
nice. Yeah, there we are. We are live. Good. Good, good, good. Uh, oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. I didn't start a brand new scheduled stream, so it just picked up the old one. So right now we are under the name Unauthorized Facts for some reason. Okay, whatever. I'll fix it.
It's not a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, just trying to get to the point where I could see if any questions come in. There we go. Yeah. So that should be good. Excellent. Well, yeah, earlier this week, Monday, the total eclipse passed through the United States, Canada, Mexico,
Okay. Yeah.
and yeah, it passed right over my house. So I was quite fortunate. My wife and I went out into the backyard. We were planning on going out to the park and being with the rest of the neighborhood, but when we kind of got started, we were already in the backyard. So, and it turns out that was actually a really great way to experience it because we're surrounded by our familiar surroundings. We've got our plants. We've got the solar lights in the pots so that we can see them at night. And the solar lights came on.
Mm.
It's like wow, but yeah, to see something so familiar be transformed into something so alien, that just increased the awe and wonder, I think.
Mm. I only saw it from the pictures that Musk he gave a
Mm.
small video from one of the Starlink satellites,
Oh, okay.
and from apparently that satellite has cameras on board,
Mm-hmm.
and so you see the spot moving over the Earth.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was from another. I heard this week that also ISS has cameras on the
Yeah, on the
ground,
outside. Yeah, yeah.
and you can see it was on. Somebody told me ISS Live or something.
Yeah.
There is a website where you can see them on permanently. I
Uh-huh.
didn't look at it yet, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, yeah, that is pretty cool because I mean it like orbits the Earth every 40 minutes or something. It's really fast, and
Mm.
so yeah, if you watch the stream, you see the aurora borealis, and then it's on the daylight side, and then it's pretty fun.
Mm. Last week, you gave me some hint about testing of Android devices.
Ah, yes, yes. I
It
forgot
was,
to look up the service
no,
providers for
but
that, but
I, I looked into it.
mhm.
Didn't really try things out, but it turns out there are a few commercial providers. But Samsung is having its own test lab,
Aha.
and so as a developer, you can use all the devices even free of charge for a number of hours per day. So
Wow.
you have a free quota, which is quite interesting.
Uh-huh.
The only problem was that the device that I needed was not in their lab.
Mm.
They have they have hundreds of devices,
Yeah, so
and
you
of
support
some
pretty
of
old
them they have
devices?
multiple pieces of them. But so the one that I needed, it was an Xcover 5. It was not there.
Mm.
But I think I found a problem.
What's that?
Looking up a little bit on internet. So there was the sync didn't want to start, but apparently with one of the updates, because Samsung is providing multiple security updates, and at a certain moment, a lot of programs had trouble syncing. And so
Hmm.
in one of the next update, it was fixed. So I
Ah.
asked my customer to install his updates, but he has not had time yet.
Mm-hmm.
So probably that will fix the problem.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any idea what the original cause was? What changed in the earlier update that broke it?
In the
Yeah, you're saying that
changed?
there was an OS update that it was working, and then one OS update is broken, and then in another one they fixed it.
Well, the strange thing is it was apparently an Android 13 related issue, and a combination between the shell that Samsung made on top of it and the Android version.
Okay.
So the problem was when you create an account, like for example a Gmail account or an Outlook account. So in my case, a DWS account, and you set that account up to do automatic syncing, that it couldn't sync at all. So the issues I'm seeing are quite similar to what I'm reading about it. So let's try that one out first before. But so there were updates from Samsung to solve the issue. Only the customer was 2 or 3 years behind.
Yeah. Okay. And is Samsung's test lab specifically devoted to Samsung phones, or is it more general than that?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Only Samsung phones.
Okay.
But there are so many of them, and I think Samsung is about the most used telephone.
Yeah. That'll cover the majority.
Yeah, but I haven't tried it yet. But it seems like something very attractive.
Nice.
So that was a very good hint.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I've seen some of those that have seen you would use something like Selenium if you were doing a web application. You could write Selenium tests and then deploy those to those test labs, and they would run those on the phone. I don't know of any test library that supports Maui, that drives Maui from the user interface down. But I haven't looked into that. So, I'm certain that something was ported from the Xamarin world into Maui to do that. But as I understand, it is even though it's a similar API, it's a different architecture. So, it doesn't seem like a slam dunk.
Yeah, but there are. I didn't look into detail, but there are apparently a lot of different systems. There are places where you can just yourself load your software on the device and control it from distance.
Oh, okay. I see.
There are places where you can do real remote debugging.
Okay, so you're leasing that remote machine, that remote device, and then you're manually controlling it and even attaching a debugger. That's pretty cool.
And then there are automated tests. But I'm not sure. That was on different providers, what I saw. Was it also available for Samsung? I think remote debugging, yes. There was also a warning, don't forget to uninstall your software. Because the next one might be playing with your software.
Like, what's this? Oh, it's already logged in. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, good. Yeah, I'm...
Besides that, I saw a lot of mails coming in from GitHub.
Yes.
Even throughout the weekend, somebody was working very hard.
Yes, indeed. I was working on the graph protocol, getting that working for the save endpoint. So that is working now, and so the next thing that I want to tackle is the feed endpoint, so that you could just receive the factor graph as a stream, and then use the Merkle hash thing to avoid the duplicates. So I can show a little bit of that, but then there's some other news as well. I have I've signed up with the Microsoft ISV program to host the replicator as a service in the Azure Marketplace. So before too long, you'll be able to go to the Azure Marketplace and purchase a replicator there, and then that will light it up, and then you can go to the portal and configure it. So I am working on that. And part of that was now deploying the production version of the replicator as a service. So, up until now, it's all been in dev.jinaga.com, but pretty soon we'll have app.jinaga.com, and that will be the production URL. Yep, and
That's
then
gonna be
and then the third thing would be that the improving team has identified some use cases that require local storage. So being able to store a fact locally and not replicate it. There's already a use case in Blog Maui for just querying locally and not hitting the replicator. And so we worked out a plan and put in an API for targeting the local storage versus targeting local and replicator together. So I've got some APIs to demo as well. So lots of stuff. I think the most exciting thing, if we want a chance for something to go horribly, horribly wrong, the most exciting thing would be to try to get do a little bit of work on the replicator as a service, the deployment there, because I'm just to a point where I think we can try something real quick, and it would be quite enlightening, I think. So let me share. There we are. So here's the backlog I've been working from. You can see here in the done column we have the 413 errors while uploading and downloading, and that's because I've got the save endpoint working. Just before that is the local property, so we can show that stuff working. Nullable fields in facts, that was a pretty cool one. But before going there, let me log on to my Azure portal, just making sure that I don't flash anything before I get there. And yeah, so that should be fine. Okay, so this is the production replicator as a service resource group. So I created a brand new subscription, Jinaga LLC. So that's the one that's hooked up with the Microsoft ISV program. So we'll get all of the stuff running in this subscription. And all of these resources here I deployed using Pulumi. So it's the same Pulumi script that I've developed in order to get the dev version working. I just said, okay, swing that over to a brand new stack and let's spin it up. And during that process, I had to change this right here, the Postgres database. So this is Postgres. There were, at the time that I started, two ways to deploy managed Postgres in Azure. One of them was single server, and the other one is flexible server. Since then, single server has been deprecated, and I did all of the dev work with single server, and now this is flexible server. So it behaves a little bit differently. The primary difference is that flexible server has replication at the database level built in. So I can have a hot replica running even in a different availability zone. So I've enabled high availability here. It is still same zone, but I can take that up to cross-zone availability. The next step that I ran into is that the login for flexible server looked a little bit different from the application side, the connection string, than single server. So I had to make some adjustments there. This right here is a container. What do I call it? Container instance. So it's Azure containers, that this one runs the migrations. So when it starts up, it connects to a database, it runs whatever migration scripts need to be run, and then it pauses for an hour and then shuts down. The reason that it pauses is that you can only see the logs while it's still running. As soon as it shuts down, you can't see the logs anymore. So just before we started, I fixed a problem with the connection string so that it could connect to the flexible server. And then it ran into this thing where it needed the int array extension. I used the int array extension in order to compute those bookmarks. So whenever you do, you pull from a feed, it gets the IDs of each of the facts that are in the tuple, and it sorts them in descending order. And that array of tuples, that array of IDs, is the bookmark. So I use int array in order to do that. And so it said that we needed to allow the int array extension. So I went ahead and did that. So going back to the Postgres database, this was under, where was it? When I was looking at the instructions, it was like, oh yeah, it's right there. Oh yeah, under server parameters. Then in here you can set all sorts of parameters for the Postgres server, and if you look for extensions, you can enable different extensions. So this allows the admin to install the extension. It doesn't install the extension. So I said, okay, that's the only one that I want to install. So there you go. And now, doing it live, we're going to rerun the migrations and see if that fixed it. So I can go ahead and stop the instance that is paused there so that I could look at the logs. Now that I've done that, not those logs. If I take a look at the containers, where are the containers? MT prod. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. That's the multi-tenant. That's not migrations. Start that one back up again. Migrations. There it is. Okay, that one is stopped. Did it? Well, I can still see the logs, even though it's terminated. Interesting. Okay. Well, those logs do go away after a little while. Okay, so now I can start the migrations again, and let's see if it's able to set up the replicator as a service database. So I know, exciting stuff. I find it exciting because this is a brand new place for people to make stuff. Okay. Starting the container group. That's what it's called, container group. It has container instances. Yeah, I first talked about the migrations as a container in my Entity Framework Core Pluralsight course, best practices. So that best practice came easily to mind because it's like, I'm doing this right now. It's not Entity Framework, but this is what I'm doing. Putting all of my migrations into a container and then just running that. So that way I never open this database outside of this VPN. So there's, it would be very difficult. I would have to click through some stuff in here in order to configure it so that I could connect to that database. I haven't done so for the dev database, and don't plan to do that for the production database. Okay. Woohoo! Look at this. We've got, I've got a typo in my migrations. PUCLIB. Okay. Not sure where that is. It says right there. It's in the edge migration. Interesting that I didn't run into this the first time through. But hey, this is progress. So I can go in there, change that, create a new migration image, push that up to my container registry, and then this will create an instance from that registry and deploy it. So that's progress. We're getting closer to having something at app.jinaga.com. Right now we have an error message. Blue. So you can see from the error message it's able to connect to the database now. It wasn't able to do that before. It's just looking for the session table. That's the very first session, or that's the very first table that it tries to hit, because it's trying to create an HTTP session. So this is for Express to have some session storage. So we are getting there. So as soon as this works, then I should have my session table. It's interesting. It should. I guess I run all of the Jinaga scripts before I ran the session script. So yeah, I didn't create the session table yet, but that is progress. All right. Well, as tempting as it is, I won't try to actually fix that on stream. I don't know. Maybe some people would find that interesting, but
Murphy is not watching. Michael, but to come back to the replication setup in Azure.
Yeah.
So, because that's quite funny. Now the database in the replicator, we would use Azure's replication there, while in fact the replicator itself could just be installed twice in a different zone.
Yep.
And then you would have the same or even a better effect.
Yep. That is true. So there are. So I do use Jinaga for the portal. So all of the things that you do in the portal to create your own replicators and to configure all of those facts go into Jinaga, except for the secrets. Those go into Key Vault, but Key Vault is already redundant. But there are still just a few things that are not tracked that way. So for one thing, the session stuff that we just talked about, does it really need to be redundant? If something goes wrong, then you don't have your session token in your browser doesn't work anymore. You log in again, you get to the right one, you get a new session, everything's good. So not terribly important. I think the really interesting part is that the multi-tenant database itself is a database of replicators, and so if you stood up another database, it would be another database of replicators. You would want to pre-configure those replicators to connect to one another, so that any fact that goes into this one goes into the next one. But then there's another replicator in the database. It's multi-tenant. So, and then using the portal's replication, you would be able to stand up a brand new replicator in the replica multi-tenant database. It's basically it's just one level up. So yeah, it could be done. One of the things that I intend to enable in the replicator as a service is that you should be able to set up multiple replicators in your space and then connect them to one another. So you should be in control of what that network looks like, which makes it a little bit awkward if I then also have your replicators replicated. And so those replicas would look like different replicators' IDs, and they would look like they're connected. So it's like that's something that I want you to have under your control. So that's kind of where this Azure Marketplace thing is going to evolve to. Is that at some point you'll be able to say, I want to stand up a replicator in this region, and then I'll have a database in that region that you stand up the replicator, and then you could say, I want to replicate from this one to that one because they're in different regions, and you'd be able to do that. Availability zones are not regions. I understand that you've got multiple availability zones in a region, but yeah, it's like the same problem, just a different dimension. so yeah, short answer, I want both. Yeah, I want that that low-level Postgres replication, and the way that I've designed the replicator as a service database, or even just the replicator database, is friendly to that kind of low-level Postgres replication, just by default, because if you think about it, Postgres, this is based on the Citus implementation. So Microsoft purchased Citus, and Citus had this SQL or Postgres replication runtime that they built up. So they had to solve exactly the same problems, and they ran into the same issues, that if you update a thing in two places, then they have to solve that problem somehow. So they can't solve it through regular Postgres locking, because that lock allowed a transaction through in this one, but it wouldn't have if it knew that there was something else happening over here too. And then those two transactions flow through the logs and into one another, or into some third, and then it's got to figure out what to do. So I don't know exactly how they solve the problem, but if you are replicating, you've got this problem. And so this is an insert-only database. Yeah.
But we don't risk to have a problem in Jinaga because of an underlying replication problem in Postgres.
Right. Yeah, because it's an insert-only database. It's not going to update in two places at once. It's going to insert here and it's going to insert there. And the uniqueness constraints are such that if there is a collision, then those two records are exactly the same. So that's another thing that could happen in replication, is that say you've got a uniqueness constraint on username, and so you've inserted into this user table over here, that user table over there, same username, but different properties. So this username has a different password than that username. But then when you merge, it's like, okay, I can't have both of them because of that uniqueness constraint, but which password do I take? But in the Jinaga database, the uniqueness constraint is based on the hash, which is the hash of everything else. So if the hash is the same, then probabilistically speaking, everything else is the same. So yeah, should be a really useful high availability feature to have. So that is that one. Then the next thing that I wanted to show, let's go back to share mode. Okay. Let's go to Blog Maui. Okay. So, in Blog Maui, we've got, let me look for Control Q, Control T, query local. There we go. So, we've got this use case here where we have just loaded up the edit screen. So we're about to edit some kind of a string. So in this case, the string, the two strings that we're going to edit are the name and the domain of a particular blog, a blog site. So, given that site, let's query for the names and the domains. That way, after they enter their update to the name or the domain, then we can come back and then create a new fact with all of these names as these names as the predecessors. So that means that if something else happens that they aren't looking at, and they've edited their name, now that is a concurrent edit, so they don't accidentally overwrite something. So that keeps everything nice and tight there, and it also has the added benefit of if they resolve a conflict, then this captures all those as predecessors, gets it back down to 1. So you can see that we are using query local in order to get those names and domains. The idea being that you were just on a screen that was showing the name and the domain of each of your blog sites. And so you've tapped on that and you've gone into this screen, and now you're about to edit. So in fact, it's even one step further. The screen that you are on, you notice this is handle edit, so this is handling a command. This edit command is attached to a button, so you're looking at the fresh data. That fresh data came in from these watches. So right here, names of site. So you're pulling in the names of site, and you've got that observer. And you're also pulling in the domains. Where's the domains? Somewhere near here there has to be the domain. But not certain why I'm not seeing that. But the idea is that you were looking at fresh data. You were just connected to the replicator. If you then, when you hit the edit button, if you just do a regular query, then it's going to resolve only after it's been able to connect to the replicator, or that fails. So I didn't want that edit to be an extra pause. Just edit based on the information that you have right now. All I'm trying to do is capture the predecessors. So that was the motivating factor behind query local. So then talking with my team, they came up with some other use cases that made sense. And so where we ended up is a new set of APIs. So let me go to the packages, and let's update Jinaga and Jinaga Store SQLite. Grab the latest on both of these. So when it's got the latest code, then boom, it's telling us that that the query local method is deprecated, and it's obsolete, and so we should use local.query instead. Now in this project, it's showing up as an error because I've got warnings as errors turned on. But ordinarily, this would just be a warning for you. So it's still there. It'll still work. But what you should do instead is local.query. And so the motivation there is that local gives you access to a few other things. So you've got local.fact. So I want to save a fact, but just save it to my local store. Don't try to post it to the replicator. Local.watch. Just set up an ongoing observer on my local store. The only thing that it does not have is subscribe. So subscribe, if it were local only, would just be watch. So that opened up a few other options for the team. So one of the reasons that they wanted to use local.fact, so let's suppose, let's go to the post. Actually, I haven't done the new post feature yet, which is hilarious because I'm just loading data into this using notebooks and that kind of thing. So haven't actually implemented that feature. But if I were to have an ad, so let's do a public, spelled correctly this time, async task of handle ad. So in here, I'm going to ultimately want to do a new post, and that's going to be async Jinaga client. This is wait, sorry. Jinaga client dot. So if I were to do Jinaga client.fact and say I want a new post. So I've got the site, I've got me, or the user, and I've got date time UTC now. Okay, so there's other stuff in here, but this is where I end up. So you want to add a new post. Boom, here you go. Here's a new post. So if I do that, then that means that this post fact does not resolve until this post gets persisted somewhere. Since I have local persistence, that means this thing resolves as soon as it's persisted locally. So that part is fine. But then in the background, it kicks off sending it to the replicator. So what if I didn't actually want to save a post beyond this local application until I decided that it was time to publish it? Up until then, I just want to keep everything locally. Now, what that would mean in this application is that you couldn't go to another device and edit your post and work on it in different places at different times and then finally say, okay, now it's ready, and publish it. But in the use case that that this team is working on, they do want to control it to that level. They do want to say, this thing shouldn't leave this device until something else happens. And so what they are doing is they are saying .local.fact, and so that stores the post locally, and it doesn't trigger the connection to the replicator. And then later, when they do handle publish, here they can await Jinaga client.fact new publish that post. A fact that doesn't exist yet, but so actually I think something like that does. Anyway, so at that point they will say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and save this publish locally and replicate it to the replicator. And so since it has a predecessor of post, the post gets carried with it. So what they also want to do with this is, so we're going to have the post names, and we're going to have the post contents. So presumably you can change the title. Well, we'll call it titles. You can change the title of a post. So that's the mutable property pattern. And then contents, you should be able to go in there into the markdown, make changes there. So let's just pretend that that entire set of markdown is just one large mutable property. And so post contents is the array of current contents, the ones that have not been overwritten, which should contain one thing. And so that means that you're publishing a particular version of a post. So if you were to go in there and change the titles, then that change wouldn't be visible because this captures that as a predecessor. You could then, after making some changes to the title, to the contents, then you could say, okay, I'm good with those, and do another publish, which you would expect would replace prior publishes. Let's put that in another line so we can see it all at once. And so now the publish is doing the whole mutable property thing. So you've got which is the current publication. So maybe it's publication. Although it was green before, so I think I do have a thing called publish. Yeah, I'm kind of curious. What did I do with it so far? Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, and the date. That's why. So, haven't finished this pattern out in the model yet, but at least there is the start of it. So this would be, yeah, let's go ahead and put the date in there. So this would capture the current state of that post. It would replace the prior publication, and so then you would be able to see from a different query that's looking just for the published posts. You would be able to see the state that in which it was published. So that gives you the behavior that you're expecting from that side. But the difference here of fact versus local fact is also giving them the ability to control when this post leaves this machine. And they're also doing this local fact on all of the titles and the contents. So it's like, do all of your work locally, don't leave this machine until I say. Then everything goes.
And was that the primary use case for your colleagues who are implementing an application?
Yes, that is. Yeah, that is the reason that they wanted this local fact. Yep, their customer is really sensitive about the amount of data that's stored on the local device. And so when we said, "Hey, we're going to use this library," and it keeps a growing history of all of the stuff on the local device, they're like, "Wait a minute, we need to be able to control this, and we need to be able to control that." So yeah, a lot of the things that I'm working on for the team are around controlling what gets stored on the local device, and this was a big step toward that. One of the ideas that we thought of before going this route was adding something up here, like adding another attribute, or adding a parameter to this attribute, or something like that. So that anytime you saved this type of fact, it was treated in a certain way. And then the more we thought about that, the more we thought, okay, that would one, be confusing because that would imply that this would never leave the machine. Somebody could interpret it that way. And they would have to know that because post is a predecessor here, and this one is not local, then it would send it. And the other thing is that I might choose by some other path of the code that this post is stored regularly. It goes out to the replicator, and I couldn't make that decision in the code like this if I had it in an attribute on the type. So bit of a trade-off there, but going this way, that led us down the path of, well, that means we've got local versions now of two things. Does it make sense to have local versions of more things? And so we said, yeah, local watch does make some sense. I can't think of a specific use case for it right now, but yeah, it's that one. I can see exactly how that should work, and it fits in with the others. Subscribe didn't make any sense because the only difference between watch and subscribe is that it keeps the connection to the replicator open. But if it never makes a connection to the replicator, then watch and subscribe are the same thing. So we said, okay, not that one. And then that said, okay, 3 is enough. We'll give it a different API rather than query local and fact local. And watch local. So yeah, that is some new stuff there. There is right now a problem with local.fact, and so they've decided, okay, it's we'll continue forward with this problem, but let's come back and fix it. So local.fact will it will store it locally and not make the connection to the replicator, but because of the way that the outgoing queue works, this fact will get sent even before you publish this fact, because anytime you call .fact with anything, it's going to send everything that's in the outgoing queue. Furthermore, if you call push, then it's going to send everything that's in the outgoing queue. And I make these calls to Jinaga client.push whenever you do a refresh, because presumably you've done a refresh because you want to hit the replicator. So maybe you know as a user that things aren't right. You've got this red status, and it's like, okay, I've fixed my connection problem. Pull refresh, and that means it should pull new stuff down. It should push outgoing stuff up, clear all the problems. So yeah, if something is in the outgoing queue, then it's going to get pushed here, whether you put it there because of local.fact or fact. And the reason for that, let's see if we can switch over to, nope, not that one. Go back to Jinaga.net. Sure, let's save. Okay, so we are in Jinaga.net. We are going to talk about storage. Wait, no, not that storage. We want to talk specifically about SQLite storage. Oh yeah, that's because it's in a different library, Jinaga Store SQLite. So in here, here's our SQLite store. When we save, here's save. When we save, we are getting the fact and role IDs, all that stuff. And then right here, where did it go? Well, there should be an insert Oh, that's fact type. Let's see. Insert. Well, let's just look for all of the insert statements. What's going on? Yeah, insert into the fact table. Okay, yeah, there it is. So you insert into the fact table, and that just creates a new fact record, gives it a fact ID because that's an incrementing field. There is no insert into any kind of outgoing queue. Because instead, when you want to get the stuff from the queue, let's see, insert, load, read, save, load, fact types. Well, somewhere down here we are, so here we're setting the queue bookmark. Where are the other queue bookmarks? Here we are, get queue. I'm not sure why I didn't see that in the list. But so here we're getting the queue bookmark, and then now we're just getting all of the facts where the fact ID is greater than that queue bookmark, and then unioning in the ancestors so that I get the full the fact graph, the full transitive closure. And there I'm also just getting the this, by the way, has changed, but right now you can see it's getting just the ancestors that are also in that transitive closure. So that means that when we insert, it automatically adds it to the queue, because just by virtue of the fact that it has an increasing fact ID, it's in the queue. And we did that specifically because we didn't want this save to we didn't want save here to split that transaction across two different things. We didn't want to insert into fact and then take that fact ID and put that into the queue later, because if that fails, now you've got a stored fact that's not in the queue. And unless you push one of its successors, then it'll never get pushed to the replicator. And that would be a problem. So I need to find a way to control what's in the queue and what's not in the queue, but still solve this problem. And I think I have an idea. The idea is right there, the hash. If we store the hash, which we know ahead of time, in the queue, and then store the fact, then if we come along later and something has happened, we might have a queue record and no fact. And so we'll see there's a hash, there's no fact associated with it. We know what's happened, and we don't have an orphan fact lying around. But the opposite wouldn't happen. You wouldn't have a fact but nothing in the queue unless you deliberately wanted it to be that way. And then once you clean up the queue, once you push things, then you actually delete those hashes from the queue, so it stays bounded. But rather than using the fact IDs, you use the hashes. That's what they're for. So with that, you should be able to use local.fact and strictly save things locally. That's the plan, anyway.
It gets complicated now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. Yeah, and one of the one of the questions that that we asked ourselves before we embarked on, before we embarked on this particular project with Jinaga is Jinaga ready for prime time? Is Jinaga ready for a client? And yeah, the answer obviously is no. You can't just take it and use it. We wouldn't be successful with this unless I were immediately responsive to the team. But then on the flip side of that, if we didn't use Jinaga for this project, what's the alternative? So is there something in the marketplace that solves this problem? The answer is yeah. Yeah, there's some other libraries that do parts of this. I think actually the closest one, the one that if we weren't using Jinaga, I would go for CR SQLite. I would say let's do that one. At least it's based on CRDTs, so I know the edge cases. With the other solutions that are not based on CRDTs, they can't even tell you what the edge cases are because it's not based on math. You're going to run into a problem, and they do not have a solution for it because there is no solution given the mathematics that they're using.
Actually, it's amazing that synchronization problem exists already so long, and it has never been solved in a real final way,
Yeah.
a mathematical way.
Yeah, nothing satisfactory up to this point. So yeah, when looking at it that way, it's like, okay, so either you choose something else that is not quite what you're looking for. So maybe we'll go with CR SQLite, and that's close. But I actually did talk with the creator of CR SQLite, so yeah, he was saying that the idea is still that I sent him some excerpts from the book, so he kind of read up on what it is I'm doing here. He said, okay, yeah, with CR SQLite, it's still a replica of the database, not a replica of the subset. So what you're going for here with immutable architecture and with Jinaga is replicating a subset just based on what you're interested in. And CR SQLite doesn't do that. It replicates the database.
Replicating the whole database.
Yeah. Okay. So I would still have used it in this particular project because this is all within one company. They own all of the devices. So a replica of the database on every device is not some huge thing. But if you were talking about you were going to do Facebook this way. So in order for you to have just your small friends network, you had to know the whole. No.
But so, even if in one company, if you have a lot of users on devices, it might be a huge amount of data.
Yeah, and in fact, that is, as we've come to find, one of the things that this client is pretty sensitive to is we want to limit the amount of data that's on the device. So even then, CR SQLite might not have been a good solution. So it's either let's use Jinaga because it is designed for that, or just start from scratch and build it yourself. And I think even with the bugs and and the missing features, as long as I'm responsive to the team and fixing those bugs and adding those features, that puts them miles ahead of where they would have been otherwise. So so even as we revisit, it's like that was the right choice.
Some very busy weekends for you.
Oh yes, that's true.
But Jinaga is making a lot of progress now.
Yes. I'm much happier deploying the production version of the replicator as a service now than I would have if we hadn't had this project. It's like, okay, I'm building a sample. I'm getting that out there, and now I'm saying, hey, people, create a replicator, pay me money for it, and start using it in your business. And then that's when all of these requests would come in, and it's like, oh my goodness, now I'd have to hire people to respond to those requests in order to get it shored up, and then so this I think is a much better plan.
Yeah, and at a certain moment in the beginning, a lot of things have to be adapted, but the next one and the next one they will have the same request they will have, which will have been implemented already. So the amount of new things will go down.
Yep. Yep. I think so. Yeah, I think somebody out there will come up with the use case for local watch, and I'll say, okay, yeah, that's the reason that we needed it. At this point, it's like it fits, so it ships. But yeah, having a motivating example would be awesome.
Good. But so the team is quite happy with Jinaga.
Yes.
Because the alternatives, either using the CR SQLite, where they will run into problems afterwards, or implementing it themselves from zero, it's not really an alternative.
Yeah. And if you implement it yourself from zero, then you make all the assumptions that everybody else has already made in trying to solve this problem. If you haven't read the CRDT paper, then you're just going to like, oh, okay, I know how to solve this. Let's timestamp everything, and let's last writer wins, and the drill. You've done it yourself. So and then it's like, oh, there's a problem. So hey, let's go back to some math.
And even if you use existing libraries or the fact that, for example, the sync framework from Microsoft is gone, means that they should have felt something. Otherwise, they would have continued. They would probably felt that they're on the wrong way. They say, okay, let's stop it before the world tells us that we are doing it wrongly.
Yep. Yep. So maybe one day Microsoft will say, hey, you know what? That thing that we're already hosting on Azure and it's available in our store, that should be the Microsoft solution for sync. So then we'll have Microsoft Jinaga.
Wait a couple of more weeks, because otherwise you will not sleep. You will not sleep.
No.
Do it step by step.
Yep.
If it goes too fast, I see the number of modifications coming in what you're programming, then I say, oh,
yeah.
Michael is not having a minute of rest anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I am very thankful that this is happening in the age of GitHub Copilot. It's like, okay, that's a thing that exists, and I could not have that kind of throughput if I weren't using Copilot every single time that I'm working on Jinaga. It's it has become an essential part of the team. It's a junior programmer kind of sitting off to the side. Now I'm using just Copilot chat, so a lot less the completion, and I'm just chatting. Okay, that looks good. Let's generate another test, and let's make sure that it hits the replicator before it adds the fact. Okay, now let's generate a test where it's inserting into the queue and then it fails before it inserts the fact. Okay, and then it generates like this. Oh, that was a little bit. Oh, I apologize for the confusion. It's always apologizing for confusion. I'm not confused. You just got it wrong. Let's just fix it.
That's why the the commits come so fast.
Yeah.
One after another.
Yep. Yep. They are Copilot commits.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Good.
Okay.
That was nice progress today.
Yes. Yeah, I thought so. So yeah, I should have that local queue thing working by the next time, and I should have app.jinaga.com stood up by next time, and I'll start transitioning that over from a GitHub login to a Microsoft login, so that it can be integrated with Azure Portal, because you log in with your Microsoft account for Azure Portal. And I still want to reason through how do I support the non-Microsoft community. I thought GitHub as a login was a good start because even if you're an open source or if you're a React developer, you probably are using GitHub at some point in your process. So that's not too much of an ask. Oh, hello, come back. Here we go. But yeah, asking people to sign up to Azure in order to then create a replicator, that might be a bridge too far for some part of the community that I want to reach. So yeah, there is a capability for me to give people free replicators through the Azure portal, the Azure marketplace, and so I intend to use that. But I would also still like to be able to go around it and say you can still get a free replicator and try things out, and maybe that is an alternate login. You don't have to use a Microsoft ID for that, or maybe you could, but still get a free replicator without going through Azure. I'm not certain, but I certainly don't want to alienate folks that that don't use Azure already for other things.
Because you will definitely get into that problem.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So.
And
So
keeping the existing dev.jinaga.
I had thought about that, although, there's a really compelling reason that I need to. Yeah, that was intended to be a test.
Development.
Yeah, and that was intended for me to test the multi-tenant application. That's not intended for it to be a different place where people can go to set up test replicators and then go to another place in order to do production replicators. They should have just one experience and say this replicator is for development, that one's for production. So there are compelling reasons for me to take that one down, or at the very least to move it in house, not keep it running all the time. For that to just be for staging. Just I made a big change. I want to check it out before I deploy that to production. So yeah, that will at some point go away, which might actually be one of the reasons I talked about before, that I've not pierced the firewall and looked at the underlying database. That might actually be the first time that I need to do that. Is that maybe some other people have been using that replicator as a service, and I just don't know because I can't see the database, and I've got distribution rules around replicators that mean that I can't log in and see your replicators. If I want to support the people who've already set up replicators on dev.jinaga.com and move them over to app.jinaga.com, then I will need to grab that database and do a one-time migration or something. But we will get to that point when we get there.
Good.
Yeah, and if anybody watching has used dev.jinaga.com, please reach out to me because it might go away at some point, and I don't want you to be just left hanging.
But your camera is getting nervous, huh? It's focusing in and out.
Yeah, I'm moving my arms all over the place. The camera settings reset every time I start, and I said, no, turn off autofocus. So, yeah.
Okay, then we see each other next week, I think.
Yes, indeed. See you next week.
Okay. Michael, enjoy programming in big.
Indeed.
But
Good
don't
thing I
forget
do.
to sleep from time to time. Okay, see you.
All right, see you.